It would be quite paradoxical to assume that there is something within the body capable of producing an out-of-body experience. Though, strange as it is, this is precisely what the pineal gland seems to do. The pineal gland, also referred to as the third eye, is a small endocrine gland located in the center of the human brain. For centuries, it has been shrouded in mystery, with many esoteric beliefs claiming that it holds the key to unlocking our hidden spiritual potential. This video will take you on a journey through the sacred anatomy which transcends flesh and bones and has the potential to render the body transcendent. It might be that the mysteries of the universe are physiologically coded into the human being. By exploring the pineal gland, we can tap into the higher consciousness that lies dormant within us. Stay with us as we're opening the gates to enhanced creativity, intuition, and spiritual awareness, all of which are closer to us than our eyes could see. A very fascinating aspect of the pineal gland is its role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle through the production of the hormone melatonin. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness and helps regulate our circadian rhythms. This is possible because it is a brain structure that responds to light. In animals such as snakes or birds, the light penetrates the skull and goes directly into the pineal gland. However, in humans, it is nested so deep in the brain that light exposure becomes indirect. The pineal gland receives signals from the retina through a pathway called the retinohypothalamic tract. This pathway relays information about light and darkness to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, of the hypothalamus, which is responsible for regulating the circadian rhythm. The SCN then sends signals to the pineal gland, which regulates the production of melatonin and in effect lures the body into sleep. Hence, the pineal gland is always in sync with light and darkness, perceptive to its alteration, opening and shutting the gates to dream states. But melatonin production is not the only role of the pineal gland, and certainly not the most astonishing. It is also believed to play a role in the production of other neurotransmitters, such as serotonin and DMT, dimethyltryptamine, the active ingredient of ayahuasca. Some researchers have speculated that DMT may be produced in the pineal gland and released during near-death experiences. This means it might be the endogenous way of secreting the enigmatic spirit molecule, making it the human link to the transcendental realms it grants access to. Now, another thing that sets the pineal gland apart from other structures in the brain is that it lacks a direct counterpart. Most structures in the brain are bilaterally symmetrical, meaning that they have a corresponding structure on the opposite side of the brain. For example, the cerebral hemispheres, which control conscious thought and voluntary movement, are mirrored on either side of the brain. Similarly, the thalamus, which is involved in sensory perception and motor control, has a left and right hemisphere. However, when it comes to the pineal gland, the counterpart is missing. Instead, it exists as a singular structure located in the center of the brain, right between the two hemispheres. It should be noted that the other structures in the brain represent the number 2, or the duad, whereas the pineal gland is the embodiment of the number 1, the monad. In many mystical traditions, the number 2 is associated with the principle of duality or multiplicity, and it is this principle that governs everything living in the sublunar sphere, where spirit is draped in matter. All life on the hither side is composed of opposites, the tension between which sets things in perpetual motion. Abundance pours itself into a void, and in doing so explores its own plenitude. Day longs for night and dissolves into the splendor of the setting sun. Good needs the invasion of evil to reaffirm and glorify itself. Unity multiplies in order to create. Eve, the mother of creation, is born of Adam's ribs. The duad rules over all conscious activity, as it is impossible for the human being to conceive the monad in itself without diverging into dialectical thought and conceptualizing it. This is because the number 1 is associated with the celestial sphere, or the transcendental realm. It is the ultimate reality that underlies all existence. Not yet creation, it is a starting point and a prerequisite for all that can exist. It is the oneness forever hidden and unsevered, eternal and unchanging. It permeates all being, because it is being itself, though never identical to it. But the question is it really inaccessible? It is not by chance that the pineal gland is phallic in its shape. From times immemorial, the phallus has been the manifestation of the creative principle, reflected in iconography and symbols signifying the number 1. It is so with the Yod of Kabbalah, the first letter in the Tetragrammaton, which is the cryptic representation of the unspoken name of Jehovah. Its numerical value is 10. If one performs the theosophical reduction, which is the process of adding up digits of a number, one gets the number 1, or the absolute principle. Moreover, the name of the pineal gland originates from its pine cone shape. The pine cone, also expressly phallic, is found in many ancient traditions around the world. In ancient Egypt, the pine cone was associated with the god Osiris and was often depicted in their art and architecture. At the Egyptian Museum in Turin, there's a display of the staff of Osiris, which features 2 serpents coiled around a rod topped with a pine cone. Once again, we encounter a duad with a monadic phallus nested between it, like the pineal gland between the 2 hemispheres. Similarly, in ancient Greece, the pine cone symbolized the god Dionysus, who represented the divine nature of ecstasy, transcendence, and altered states of consciousness. Dionysus was often depicted holding a wand ending in a pine cone, which was called the thyrsus. It was commonly used in rituals and could represent the pineal gland's role in spiritual awakening and divine inspiration. Carvings found in ancient Assyrian palaces dating back to 713 to 716 BC showed winged figures holding pine cones, suggesting that they were a symbol of immortality and the eternal nature of the human soul. Now, we would argue that the symbolic relationship between the pine cone and the pineal gland is of inverse nature, meaning that it's not that the pine symbol is suggestive of the structure in the brain, but rather that the pineal gland is also a symbol, an embodied symbol imprinted in the brain to signify its transcendental nature. If the human body is a machine, it is the one that reproduces the soul. Should we heed the word of Aristotle, who claimed that everything that has a form inevitably has a soul, and that forms are in fact souls, it would be safe to assume that the body is soul incarnate. The everyday experience of every human being might often seem short of spiritual, but the very phenomenon of sensory life, perceptive of forms, is a wonder in itself. In the Hindu conception of the chakras, the body-soul organism has 7 energy centers. Each center has a bilateral correspondence to its bodily agent on the one hand and its occult counterpart on the other. For instance, Ajna chakra, located at the center of the forehead and also known as the third eye chakra, is associated with intuition, insight, and psychic abilities. In the yogic tradition, Ajna chakra is often linked to the pineal gland. It is believed that this chakra is connected to it through a subtle energy channel or nadi called sushumna. The fascinating thing is that when the pineal gland is activated through yogic practice, it ceases to be a mere physical organ. In other words, through the activation of spiritual heat, the brain acts as an alchemical furnace that transfigures the material body into its celestial double. As soon as the gates to the higher realms are open, consciousness enters into its pure, undraped form. This transformation is at the center of all mystical traditions where the acquisition of a subtler or celestial body is concerned. The occultists studying the esoteric nature of the human being believe that spiritual involution is paralleled by the evolution of the physical body. In a more divine state of eons past, where souls were not yet captured by the material aspect, the functioning of the chakras did not need to rely on bodily agents, such as the pineal gland, but could exercise its functions within its own immaterial light. The subsequent incarnation of spiritual functions gave rise to physical organs that are veritable rudiments of celestial bodies. As soon as the spirit becomes incarnate in a body, the body becomes a symbol in memory of what engenders it. The pineal gland is one of the most powerful ones. Its central position in the Book of Creation signifies its importance as a bridge between the material and celestial worlds. Heed its word, and you will see your reality transfigured right between your eyes.